Dear friends, welcome to Quest for Knowledge. In today's video, we will discuss concept of exception handling in Python, and we will see how to use try except block in Python to handle any exception. So let's get started. So when we talk about exception is an error that raised in a program when program is syntactically correct and it terminates the normal execution of the program. So there is difference between syntax error and exception. As the name suggests, syntax error when there is wrong syntax in code that raised syntax error. So when program is not according to Python syntax, it will cause syntax error, as you can see over here with if parenthesis has been used. So it is not according to Python syntax, as parentheses are not allowed with if statement in Python. So when we try to run this code, it will cause syntax error. As you can see, it will generate syntax error. And when we talk about exception terminates the program where it gets the exception. As you can see in this particular program, we are assigning x with 24, we are printing value of x, then we are dividing x by 0, and then we are printing value of y. So when we run this code, output is x equals to 24. That means this particular statement has been executed. So this particular statement is printing x equals to 24, and when it tries to divide x by 0, it is getting exception. So it will not execute the next statement and program will execute here only. So in output we can see x equals to 24, this particular statement has been executed, and the rest statement, as you can see, this particular print statement is not executed here. So this particular statement is causing exception and it will generate this particular exception details. So here it is showing which file is generating exception, which line number, and this particular statement causing exception, and it is showing name of exception. So here exception name is zero division error. This particular division, this type of division where number is divided by 0 is not allowed, so it is throwing exception. So the rest statement will not execute. So now the difference is clear. So another exception we can see over here is we are creating a list of 3 elements 10, 20, 30. We are printing value of first element. So as we discussed in earlier videos how to access element, we use indexing. So here we are accessing 0 index element, so we are accessing first element, then we are accessing next element with 1 index, and then second index, and then third index. So when we try to run this code, you can see the output, it is printing first element and it is printing 10. So this statement has been executed. Then next statement, second element x index of 1, so it is printing second element 20. Then third element it is printing, and when we try to access fourth element index 3, so it is generating index error, as this index is not there in this particular list. There are only 3 elements, so we can access index from 0 to 2. So this particular statement is causing exception, so it will not be executed, as you can see over here is. So this is another example of exception. So to handle exception we use try except block. As you can see in this code, we have put this particular statements inside try block. So this is the syntax of try. We write try keyword and then we put colon, and all the statements we write inside try block. So if any statement will cause exception, it will go to except block. So here we write except and then we put colon, and then this statement will be executed when there is exception inside try block. So when we run this code, output will be first element 10 as we discussed in earlier program. It will print second element 20, third element 30, and when it will try to access this particular element index of 3, so this particular statement is causing exception. So when exception is raised inside try block, the execution will go to except block and it will print an exception occurred. So here in output you can see it is printing an exception occurred. So in this way we can handle the exception. We can also write the same code and we can specify the exception with except. So here we are writing statements inside try block and we are writing exception name with except. So both will give you the same output. So in this way we can handle all the exception, and in this particular except we are trying to handle index error only. So in both ways we can handle the exception. So when we try to handle only one exception in our code, as you can see over here, is if this try block will throw any other type of exception, this particular except block will not handle the exception, because this particular except block is handling only index error. So here you in this program you can see inside try block we are accessing first element, then we are dividing first element by 0, then we are printing second element, third element and fourth element. So when this program will execute this particular statement, it will print first element, and when it will try to divide first element by 0, this particular statement will cause exception. So rest statements will not be executed. So this particular statement is causing divide by 0 error, and here in this except block we are only handling index error. So this particular except is not capable of handling division by 0 error. So when we try to run this code, output will be it will print first element and then it will throw exception, because in our code we are not handling this kind of exception because we have mentioned exception name. So this particular try except block is handling only index error. So to overcome this we can specify multiple exception with except. So to write multiple exceptions with except, we use parenthesis and we write exceptions separated by comma. So now this particular try except block is capable of handling index error and 0 division error. So if this particular block will cause index error, it will be handled by this except block, and 0 division error is also handled by this except block. So when we run this code, now the output will be first element 10. As you can see, this statement is printing first element, then the next element. In this particular statement we are dividing first element by 0 and it is causing exception, and that exception is 0 division error. So control will go to except block and it will print an exception occurred. As you can see in the output, it is printing first element and then it is writing an exception occurred, and this is the statement written inside except block. So in this way we can handle multiple exception. So there is else clause with try except, and this particular else block executed only if the try clause does not raise an exception. As you can see in this particular code, we have one function with name divide. It is taking two parameter AB, and this is the syntax to write function as we have discussed in earlier videos. So here we are dividing A by B and we are assigning the result in C. So this particular statement inside try, and then we have put except. So if this particular statement will cause any exception, it will go to except block and it will print error while dividing. So when this particular try block won't raise any exception, so this particular else block will be executed. So in this case we are invoking divide with 10 and 5. So it will go to this function and it will execute the code. So 10 and 5, value of A will be 10 and value of B will be 5, as here arguments are 10 and 5. So when we are trying to divide 10 by 5, it will give some result, and 10 divided by 5 will give you 2. So in this case no exception is raised, so it will go to else block and it will print value of C. But when we are trying to invoke divide with 10 and 0, so here in this case 10 and 0, so we are trying to divide 10 by 0, so it will cause exception and it will print error while dividing, and this else block won't be executed. So when we run this code, output will be 2.0, as the division of 10 by 5 is 2.0, and in this case we are trying to divide 10 by 0, so it will cause exception and the control will go to except block and it will print error while dividing. So in this case we can use else clause. Next we have finally block. So we can also use finally block, and this particular finally block is always executed after try and except block. So there are basically two cases when try block raises an exception. So in this case we are again printing value of first element, second element, third element and fourth element. We have used except and finally block. So in this case we are trying to access fourth element. So this particular statement will cause exception and it will go to except block, and then it will go to finally block because finally block always executed. So output will be first element 10, second element 20, third element 30, and when it will try to access fourth element, exception will cause. So this particular statement will not be executed and it will go to except block. It will print an exception occurred, as you can see over here, and then finally block will be printed, try except block finished, as this is the statement inside finally block. Second case, when try block does not raise an exception. In this case we have removed fourth statement that is accessing fourth element. So here try block is accessing first element, second element and third element, and except block we have finally block similar to last program, and the output will be first element, second element, third element, and then finally block will be executed. So in this case try block is not raising any kind of exception and still finally block is executed. So finally block always executed when try block raise exception or try block does not raise exception, doesn't matter, finally block will always be executed, right? Thank you for watching this video till the end. If you have any doubt, you can write me in the comment box. Thank you.